Welcome to the Results Method podcast. This is super exciting because this is our very first episode and I'm returning to the podcasting sphere after having a little bit of a hiatus, and it was probably perfect timing because anyone that's followed me knows that we were going through our final IVF journey for the last blessing to add to our family. And I also had an absolutely devastating injury that kind of put me on my ass. I haven't trained for the longest that I haven't trained in my entire adult life. And it's been almost 9 months of, managing both pregnancy, now postpartum, and my injury. So this is the very first soiree back into podcasting, and I'm joined with my beautiful co-host, the lovely Sarah Priestley.
So excited for this.
I
So
am
good. We've
too.
been talking about it for a while.
Probably almost the last year. I think this has been a conversation piece for us and something where I keep saying to Sarah, we've got to do it. We've got to do it.
Yeah. And we'd be having chats in the pool and we're like, we need to be putting this on a podcast.
Absolutely. Every single time. So now we're actually in a position where we can do it. And what is the podcast all about? Well, I think it's going to evolve and unfold organically as we continue to do our recordings and we're getting feedback from all of you listeners. But ideally, what we've positioned it as is a all-encompassing podcast for everything results orientated, right? So we're not just limiting this to competition preparation, which is, definitely something that was a highlight of one of my former podcasts, The Competitive Edge. This is actually going to be about real world scenarios, real world people, real world results. So we're going to be looking at real life structure. We're going to be looking at, sustainable results, evidence-backed and evidence-based processes, methodologies, and principles. We're going to be looking at everything nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, mindset. We will be discussing everything from a general population point of view, as well as touching on the competitive landscape. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Sarah, what do you want to add to it? Apart from the fact that this is not a one-size-fits-all a podcast or structure that we'll be diving into, I think it's exciting.
Yeah, I think you've just about covered it. I think it's, like you said, getting results for wherever you are in your journey or whatever your goals are. I think some of the things that we say will be applicable to competitors or lifestyle, but a lot of what we do and what we say is applicable to anyone really who's wanting to achieve goals. And then we'll have updates on our journeys as well. So we'll throw a little bit of that in there.
Absolutely. And we're going to have some really cool guests. We will have some special guests on the various podcasts, and we will have people that will be on just talking about broad transformations, maybe challenges in their life, things they've overcome, right through to competitive athletes, talking about much more structured, restricted based processes. So you're going to see all ends of, the spectrum with us. And what's really cool about this is that it means that it's a podcast that's open up for anyone that wants to just basically level up and get results in any area of life, looking at everyday life through to performance related spaces. And, for those that potentially want to consider stepping on stage, this could be a really great entry point for you, or it could be a way to level up the way that you're actually doing the process now. So without further ado, a little bit of an intro on who we are. My name is Alicia Kyrgios. And I'm going to pronounce that again, Alicia, because most people get it wrong. And because most people get it wrong, and I hate Alicia. It sounds like, someone's got a dog on a leash. I really hate it. So I'm like, I've always been known as Ali because it is a beautiful short abbreviation. It's a nickname I had in high school. So no one can stuff that up, Sarah.
We're going to get Alicia's coming at us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, absolutely no offense to that, but it's just, it's a bugbear for me. So look, I am an accredited sports nutritionist and a contest preparation coach. I have formal accreditations and qualifications in both spaces. I have been doing this for over 2 decades. My business is actually 18 years old, and I am also the director of the FMG Italy and Dubai shows, and I sit on the board for the Sports Nutrition Association. I'm also one of their senior assessors. So I live in the realm of passion for what I am passionate about. I don't feel like I work a day in my life, and I'm literally connecting with everyone from general population clients through to competitive level athletes, through to brand new and aspiring pros, just stepping into the space for the very first time. I also work with students and those that are wanting to become accredited sports nutritionists. I also work with graduates, and I mentor those in the industry to make sustainable, thriving business practices. So I do a lot, and I work with such a broad spectrum of individuals and I genuinely love everything that I do. So I'm only a few weeks post my third and final C-section. It has been a hell of a journey. We'll get into that a little bit more, but I'm basically living newborn life. And my life and my structure and my schedule looks very different from Sarah's. And I think that's where we're going to bring a really beautiful edge to the podcast, because we have such different spaces that we sit in, but they really do complement each other. So Sarah, take the floor. Tell everyone what your stuff looks like.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Priestley. Some of you may know me as one of Ali's long-term clients. I think we've been working together 4 or 5.
Coming into 6 years almost, because it was before COVID, right?
Yeah.
So that's 2020. We're now in 2020. So there you go.
So almost 6 years.
6 years.
Some of you might have seen me through her socials, and also you might know my voice from the Comp Closet podcast. I'm a FMG Pro competitor and currently on prep. So please excuse the prep brain if we have any moments.
So we're going to have lack of sleep, sleep deprivation, newborn prep. No, not prep brain, but like a prep brain, and then an actual prep brain.
And alongside that, I also run my own social media management and social media coaching business, Drive Media Co. And yeah, like I said, currently deep in prep. So it's going to be interesting to share the contrast between what my routine and my structure and my life is like compared to Ali's, only a few weeks post C-section.
But I think the really interesting thing that you will see is that what we are both very good at is structured daily habits and routines that work for specific phases. So the really cool part is over the next sort of, 12 months, you'll see Sarah go through multiple phases. So you'll see how this fitness lifestyle literally just adjusts. And the way I would describe it is it's turning the volume up on restriction and rigidity at different points in her year versus turning the volume down. It's just coming out of a stage process and into, more of a lifestyle / off season / improvement space. And my dial will turn up and down depending upon, show schedules, travel, workloads, and then it's going to be coming into my own athletic pursuits, which this year does not include a prep to stage because I'm not that crazy. I'm not repeating what I did in 2022 again, where I jumped on stage where George was only 20 weeks old. That was just crazy. I'm never doing that again. That's unhealthy, mentally and physically. But I will be doing, and I am challenging myself with a athletic pursuit because I don't like to not have some form of personal development in my life. So I will be doing a sprint-based triathlon at the end of the year. So I will take you all on that journey. It's going to look very different. And my phases will look different because it will be coming out of newborn bubble into more structured routine, and then the ability to actually, grow with my baby throughout the year and rehabbing, because anyone that's followed me will know that the journey I've been on in the last 10 months has been diabolical. And so I will still be rehabbing coming out the back end of not only rehabbing post C-section, but rehabilitating, because I still have a list post the, back injury that I had at the early phases of my pregnancies. My last pregnancy didn't look anything like the ones prior, where I trained all the way through. I was still deadlifting. I was training before I went into, hospital to have my surgeries. It didn't look like that this time. But I still managed with structure and with routine and with really good daily habits. They just had different intent and different strategy. So we're going to cover off all of the variations for the ways that we approach things. But one thing that you will note again is that we are both living this as a lifestyle. So, no matter what the challenges are, no matter what the phases are, you're going to see the various ways that we approach them with a little bit more, maybe flexibility and adaptation, but essentially the foundations remain the same.
Yeah, I think it's those habits that anchor you through every phase, and you're just adjusting the priorities and potentially the timing and the intensity of those habits.
Yep, definitely. Goalposts may change, but the game doesn't, right? So I think that's the key here. So on paper, our lives look completely different, but the principles we apply to get the results that we get are actually quite similar. And that's what the results method is all about, is creating the results for your specific goal for the chapter that you're in at this point in your life. And wherever we can, we'll give you actionable tips, items, and, strategies that you can go and adopt for wherever you are will meet you where you're at. So why perfect routines don't work? Sarah, take the floor.
For a bit of context, like currently I'm 10 weeks out from FMG Gold Coast, 14 weeks out from FMG Italy. So my dial is turned up to 100% for prep. And because I don't have any kids and I run my own business, so I'm not going to an office or anything like that, I have complete control over my routine. I can do pretty much whatever I want, whenever I want. And I think that's probably the biggest difference between me and someone with, a family and different things that they have to tend to. So don't get me wrong, I am busy with my business and everything that's going on in prep protocols, but I'm in the position where I can actually plan out my entire day and schedule everything in at the times where I have the right amount of energy to do those habits. So I've got all the things I need to tick off, like my steps, my training, my sleep, my posing, meal prep, and then all of my work as well and client calls and things like that. So for me, I plan everything in like my Google Calendar, and my routine does look pretty much the same every day. I have the most energy in the morning. So I usually get up, I go for a walk. I then go to the gym pretty early, like 4:30 walk in the gym by 5:30, get my session done because that's just when I'm able to push the hardest in the gym for me. Then I have a meal. Then I'm in the pool doing my cardio and then getting more steps in while I'm getting my work done pretty much and client calls. So I still work like normal hours, but I'm able to fit all those things in while I have energy. And then I think sleep's another big one. I'm able to be in bed by
How do we spell sleep? I forget what sleep is.
And probably the biggest difference for us as well. Like,
oh my God, yes. I
Yeah.
get your check-ins and I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous.
like I literally go to bed 7:30, 8 p.m.
Yeah.
every night.
Oh, so jealous.
Yeah, it just helps so much for me. But I think it did take me a long time to be strict on that routine and actually prioritizing going to bed that early.
Yeah.
And because I can, I just really do make the most of that now.
And we identified pretty early in the piece that because you function so well early in the morning and in that lifting session at that time, and physically you function well, optimizing that window of sleep early made sense, right?
Mm.
Whereas for some people, because if we throw me in as an example when I'm actually lifting, I couldn't probably do that any earlier than a 5 a.m. because I just wouldn't be physically capable of exerting the same level of intensity that early. And I find that for me, even if I look at, historical performance metrics, where I do perform my best, and even though I am early morning chromatome type, and I will 100% go to bed early, be up early, I find I get up and I'll do a bit of work first, then I'll go train. And my best window for training and where I feel the best adaptation. So the capacity to push with more intensity when I'm fueled, and then also the recoverability post. For me personally, I know my window feels best around that sort of 6:30 to 8:30 mark. So it's that slightly later, but I'm usually up by 4:45 every morning. Now that's pre-newborn bubble. I am desperately trying to get him to feed. He's a breastfed baby, which means that they're feeding sort of every 3 hours at best, which means you're up during the night no matter what. If you have, a perfect set of circumstances, they feed, they change, they're down, and it's all over and done with within sort of 45 minutes. If it is a bad set of circumstances, though, that feeding window can take an hour and a half, and you've only got 90 minutes left in the cycle before you're up and at it again, right? So far in this process, I have been desperately trying to get him to do a feed and be down with him like you are, sort of around 30 to 8 o'clock mark, and getting a couple of hours in before the first feeding of the night. I'm trying to do that. But far out, ladies and gentlemen, babies will be babies and you're on their schedule. They are the boss. They're the smallest thing in the house and they run the whole freaking house. I tell you now, I am just his prisoner and I am confined to his schedules. So for me at the moment, in the last 4 weeks with this particular newborn, we've had a few complications. So we had jaundice, which hit hard, and he wasn't clearing the bilirubin. So we actually ended up with a hospital visit 10 days post, which really substantially impacted my C-section healing. So I have had a process where I don't have a routine, which I would normally have in play at the 4-week mark post-birth. I usually have a pretty good structure. They're usually already into a sleeping window at night. They're only up maybe at 11 o'clock, then 1 o'clock, and that's it. This guy, though, just dealing with the in hospital stay. And then also I had to bring the blanket home, and he was on a 24/7 blanket at home for 3 days, meaning that we were feeding every 2 hours, but the process took me 90 minutes to move the blanket, get into the position, give him the feeding, get him back on, change him, you set the system back up again. That was like that for, 3 days at home. And then it was another 4 days post to get him back into a routine. And then just when we got into a bit of a system, the kids came home and passed on a bug, and the whole house has been sick for over a week. So now he's cluster feeding every goddamn day. So I'm trying to manage workload and clients, and I've got him literally on a boob while I'm taking a phone call, or I've got my Google Meets with no video on because he's literally feeding. And then I am having to reschedule and shuffle things. So does my day change? No, it just sometimes the goalposts in the day will change, but I'm still hitting my targets for the day, which for me at the moment do not include training or rehab because I'm still in the post C-section healing phase, but they do include work. And they do include managing household and 2 toddlers because this is baby 3 under 3.5. So this is chaos, but it means that sleep has been impacted, which impacts recovery, which impacts lactation. So I have had to manage that. And that means then that there's pumping, there's a whole bunch of things. And any of the mums out there listening to this, they're going to be listening to this and going, oh my God, I know exactly what she's talking about. For anyone that's not yet a mum, well, look what you have to look forward to.
A mum listening to this who's
Yeah.
watching my daily routine or my
Yeah.
routine or evening routine on Instagram, and then they're like, why can't I fit all of that in? But
Or they're going, God, I'm failing. I'm never going to
Yeah.
be able to do this. And I'd like to say, well, no, that's not the case. It just won't look the same. Right.
Yeah.
And coming from someone who, has prepped, or I have never prepped single. I have never not had a child. In all of my career in bodybuilding, I think this is a really powerful statement to make. I've always been a mother. So, for all the people out there that go, well, having a baby is going to ruin my physique. I had 5. It doesn't, okay? It's how you manage the process pre and postnatal that will either dictate that you come out of it with a physique that is capable of stepping on stage, or that might take more time before it's capable of stepping on stage, right? So I've never done it single. So I've always juggled motherhood, but I can tell you now juggling it with 3 toddlers or 3 babies under this age is a whole new ball game. And it definitely just requires a different level of organization, a different level of expectation of self, and also compassion, because you don't always have the ability to execute a day perfectly. There is no such thing as perfect anymore. I don't think there ever is, to be honest. I don't even think there is for you, because you're still going to have the odd random day or niggle or injury or something that's going to pop up.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as perfect, but as a parent, you've got to really take that lens off. And I think the biggest thing you've got to do is not compare yourself, and definitely don't compare yourself to a single person that has a lot less responsibility and or challenge that's going to pop up, because man, kids are literally a hurricane, right? And you are trying to prep in the hurricane, and sometimes you're in the eye of the storm and everything lands perfectly, and other times you are literally part of the storm and being flung around with the high rises beside you. So it's like you've got to take it with your stride, right? And that's kind of how I'm approaching my daily routine. It is malleable, adaptable. I'm remaining fluid. But the one thing that I don't ever give up on is my nutrition. My macros and my micros are hit for lactation, to support me, to support baby, to support healing, to support recovery. My meal timings are still fairly consistent. Even if I'm breastfeeding, Christos cuts my food up, I'm still eating at the right times, right? So, the changes in that have come into what is now prioritized for baby and for lactation. That means different micros, different, focus on that. I'm probably more micro focused than I am macro focused at the moment, but I'm tracking both. But I'm still tracking, and I'm still prepping, and I'm still consistent, right? So that's the key take home for where I think my routine is at the moment. And I'm still thinking about a routine. So even though I've got hit and miss sleep schedules, I'm still going, cool, how can I optimize when I lay down so that I'm still getting sleep, even though it's broken? I can try to collect maybe 6 hours on a good night, But there's been several weeks where I had a sleep debt of over 24 hours. So,
Oh my God.
you got to just roll with the punches. But I hope that kind of sheds a bit of a light on the fact that Hey, in every aspect and in every phase and every season of life, as long as you can control the controllables and give yourself a bit of grace, I think that your ability to still hit some really cool targets is there. You're going to hear me talk though about how I'm going to move into a lot more structure, a lot more routine. I'm going to have some focused rehabilitation and some focused time in the swimming, in back in the pool again with Sarah. I'm working towards a try at the end of the year, which I think is quite cool because it'll be a very different level of sporting and athletic based goals, but a lot of the principles will be the same. So you're going to be able to take home some really cool points with that.
I think it's like it's building those habits and
100,
building upon them, like starting with basic habits and then adding more and more on.
100%.
Like I know when I first started my fitness journey, like it was so hard to even just get my meal prep done or to just get enough sleep or to
Yep.
actually just make it to the gym. And one of the things that really helped me actually was obviously getting a coach, but also the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read that?
Yeah, I have.
Such a
And
good
it is
book.
good because it talks about your minimal effective dose of things,
Yes,
right?
exactly, and it
Yep.
talks about, like, if you wanna read a book, you just read 1 page, like, commit to reading 1 page every day, and
Yeah.
then you're probably gonna do more, or, like, if
Ticking a
you're
box, laying the foundation,
yeah,
even if it's just the best that you can do today, it
yeah,
doesn't have to be perfect or to the extreme.
yeah.
Removes the all or nothing mindset.
Mhm, exactly, or, like, if you wanna go for a walk or you've got posing practice to do, like, you leave your walking shoes or your heels out where you can
Yeah.
see them, or for me at the moment, it's like I'm trying to do more, trigger balling and mobility, so
Good
I
girl.
leave the trigger ball out where I can see it, and then
So
I
you
just
trip
pick it up and
over
go.
it and you're like, shit,
Yeah,
I'm on the floor anyway. I may as well just trigger my ass, right?
but it works so well,
It
like,
does.
making it obvious for yourself. I
It
think
does.
that's
It does.
so underrated.
I agree with that. And I
Yeah.
think, one of the biggest things that I would probably talk about, I read this book, Placebo, You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza, I think it is. I was reading that while I was going through injury. I actually originally got the book because I wanted to use it as a sales development tool for the way that we think about, situation or ourselves or a scenario is going to dictate the outcome we get, right? So I was actually leaning into it more from a psychology perspective from that aspect. But what I got out of it was really cool because I've been able to use it as a coaching mechanism with a lot of my clients when they present with a challenge or a scenario and they have a narrative or a dialogue that is limiting and that is definitive, right? So where they've gone, hey, this looks like this, and then they've catastrophized in their mind the outcomes. Let's use an example of if I wanted to, I could be like, okay, my injury, for example, or even just the situation with no routine at the moment with my baby. Well, everything's out the window, nothing is going to work. I may as well not have any goals. Like I could be having this dialogue with myself. And You Are the Placebo basically talks about the fact that, what you believe to be true and what how you attention your thought processes regarding a scenario is the exact outcome you're going to get. So instead of saying, like with my injury, I'm broken or it's going to need surgery or it's all of these things, my belief was doing certain things during pregnancy was going to alleviate my symptoms, make me pain free, and have me moving pain free post baby. Now, did I know whether or not that was actually going to happen? Absolutely not. And there was no given on it. It was literally a case of like everyone kept telling me I was going to need surgery. They were even talking about potentially doing it during pregnancy. But we got on the table, had the C-section, and as soon as everything wore off, I had no pain. So I am still listing, and that is still something that needs to be fixed. But I'm a big believer that, what you do tell yourself and repeatedly tell yourself and believe about yourself is going to give you the outcome you want. So in any situation or scenario where you have a challenge or, like we say, don't compare yourself to maybe, like if I was to compare this pregnancy to last ones where I've been moving the whole way through and kept more muscle, I could have been having a really bad narrative with myself and I didn't do that. So my take home point to everyone is, you don't do the things that are going to put you in a position where it is a definition or a catastrophe based outcome. And instead you take that blueprint of, well, this is how I choose to see the scenario. And this is what I believe to be true moving forward. So my focus is now, not on pressuring myself into a prep and not on pressuring myself into going back and lifting heavy straight away and building muscle. Instead, it's about functional movement. It's about, overall fitness, which includes cardiovascular and overall, capacity in a sport that is not linked to a stage, which takes pressure off there. And I will come back into the stage in 2027. So that's another really good book. I took home some really different key takeaways, but I guess the principle of it is, again, it's checking yourself about how you believe something to be true and then how you're applying it. So when you're looking at routine and structure, not saying to yourself that it's impossible for you, it's unreachable for you, you've got all these challenges and mountains in front of you, and instead going one small thing at a time, one small focus at a time. And my belief is I'm going to get beyond that mountain, right? So yeah, that's another good one to look at.
Yeah, I'll have to read that one. Do you think it helps for you, like having a goal? Doing a
100%.
try at the end of the
Definitely.
year?
I need to. If I don't have something that is like, because for me, I'm all about personal development, right? So for me, bodybuilding isn't aesthetic. It is technically, yes, but it's not. It's never been about that for me. And I think that's what breeds champions is when you take away this thing where it's what you're running away from and what you want less of, as the goal, and that you think, when you get to this stage or you get to this weight or you get this amount of abs showing, it's going to change your life profoundly by going pro. It's like, no, actually, it's the person you become in the journey and the process through the challenges that makes the sport so powerful and so impactful and so life-changing, right? The pro status means freaking nothing, really.
Yeah,
It's
nothing
it's the
changes.
person you become along the way. So for me, personal development is the core of what I do and why I do it. So this whole process of building mental resilience, which is what I think the injury gave me through this pregnancy, and the outlook I still kept, and the level of self-acceptance I had on this changing physique, changing composition, for me personally, it's like, cool, that made me different. It sharpened my skills and tools in a different way. It softened me and my edges in a different way. And it gave me a completely different outlook and perspective and a completely different appreciation for what my body has done. I think I did a post on this. I've had 6 pregnancies, unfortunately, only 5 live births, but I've had 3 major abdominal surgeries. I've had 3 of those babies in 3 years. Like, this body is amazing. Like, what it has been capable of doing is nothing short of, it's a miracle, really, what we're capable of. So for me personally, now the goalpost has just changed, and it's like I still want to give myself something to strive for. It's still going to be challenging, being able to, and we've talked about this, Sarah, in the pool, being able to run because of my SIJ dysfunction, because of what we've got to rehab through. I can't even probably attempt to put shoelaces together for the pavement to be pounded until maybe July of this year. Because
You've only just started walking.
correct. I have, for everyone listening, I have only just started, and this is post major abdominal surgery, to incorporate a walk with my dogs for the first time in 8 months. So, because my gait was so affected by the listing, I literally looked like this big crooked pretzel, for months. And it was painful. I couldn't walk straight. I couldn't stand up straight. I couldn't do more than 100 meters. Like, it was really bad. So again, the way I positioned my internal dialogue narrative and, like, you are the placebo here, really shaped how I could come out of the back end of the C-section, I think. And also I think it's shaping how I'm going to tackle the rest of this year. So for me, getting to that short distance triathlon is like going to be such an incredible accomplishment. And from there and throughout that process, I think that the habits, like the level of fitness and the transferability of that through to a strength program next year that will be purely focused on, rebuilding muscle mass will be exceptional. So
Yeah.
it's not lost on me that everything I do this year is foundational and setting me up for success for next year, which will be a big year to do a return to stage, which will be bringing a highly competitive physique. But this year it's going to be about structural strength, foundation building, rehabilitation, mental alignment. Like, there's going to be so much more that I'm focused on.
Yeah.
I'll share all of that with all of you, and hopefully you find some really cool takeaways. But I'm not doing anything crazy like a return to stage prematurely ever again.
That was actually wild. I remember you
It
did
was
that after
wild.
Georgia, and it was
Yeah. 8 kilos in 8 weeks and a 15-week, I could only lift for 15 weeks. So
yeah.
I'd lost muscle, lost size, and I still got second place, but I just missed the first place in the crown again because my abdominal plate hadn't come back yet. So I didn't get my normal 6-pack. Do you know it turned up 3.5 months later for my fucking wedding? I'm like, what's the point of that? But it
Need a
just took
two-piece
that
wedding
long
dress.
for it to come back and develop. So, oh my God. Anyway, so I respect timelines and I respect healing and recovery and what my body needs way more now. And I think that comes with experience, maturity, and also, I guess, just like I say, a much deeper level of self-acceptance. So
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of anyone listening, how can they actually build that structure or build that framework to have these habits and
Yeah.
that structure in their day.
So I think you've got to look at it from the point of view, okay, well, where am I? And you got to meet yourself where you're at, right? So what is my current season? What is my season? What is my focus right now? What is my ideal goal? And then I think you need to, and I use the COM-B model for this quite a lot, look at capabilities, opportunities, and motivators, right? How motivated am I to move past maybe certain challenges or make the sacrifices at this point in time? But then also, how am I actually capable and what are my opportunities to allow that to happen? You might not be in a position, if you are someone that is considering doing a stage per se, to even look at that right now. You might not have the mass, you might not have the underlining metabolic, foundations. You might not have anything lined up in your circumstances socially and from a financial or a family point of view that is going to facilitate that. So first things first, where are you current season? What is your capacity? And what are your capabilities and opportunities right now to allow for that to happen? And then I think it is choosing your non-negotiables, right? What are the things that need to be a priority for you to achieve the result that you want? So in my case, with recovery and rehabilitation, it's about proper fueling and it is about sleep. So getting into and getting my newborn into a sleep routine as quickly as one can, knowing that you're not the driver always of that vehicle. You have a nasty little tiny backseat driver that takes the wheel frequently. So look, you've got to just focus on the things you can and make your non-negotiables in place. Looking at what's important. So for Gen Pop, it's going to be very similar to mine. It's going to be protein, timing, consistency, sleep for recoverability, consistency for the amount of output you've got as well as recoverability. But then for a competitor, it's way more different. That's where we're looking at, okay, there is sacrifice, there is rigidity, there is non-negotiable adherence levels. There is, looking at trainings, meals, and recovery as lifestyle variables, yes, but the things that are going to put those in play are much bigger than just a plan, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's like it switches from in a build phase, just having those non-negotiables, which is like maybe hitting your training, your nutrition, your overall macros,
Yep.
and your sleep. And then in a prep, it's like you've got to do your posing, hit your steps, hit your cardio, get
Yep.
your training in.
Yep.
And then on top of that, it's like those 1%ers to
Yep.
really
Correct.
optimize everything, your recovery and things like that as
Maintenance and
well.
having treatment, and there's so many other variables. And so I guess, going on from there is you need to decide what's flexible, what can be flexibles. For me, I don't have flexibility with a, complete dependent. It's going to be like that for at least the next sort of 12 months because I don't leave my babies for the first 12 months at all. They're literally attached to me for 12 months. And anyone that knows me is going to see them at shows throughout the whole of 2026. Well, they're going to see Atticus anyway. The other two can stay at home. But again, that is a non-flexible component for me. So now that means that what I do this year has to fit in and around him and in and around workload. They are going to be my two, higher priorities. And that means, as I say, my year looks like it looks. But for others, it will be, okay, well, can training be flexible? Can the volume of what I'm putting on my plate be flexible? Do I have flexibility within my working hours and my working routine and my working structure or my family, where I've got support and I've got people that can have, I've got carers that can take over maybe, or cleaners that can manage the household because you just don't have the ability to pick anything up. But again, it's deciding what can be flexible in your life and where that fits in with your goals.
I think that's a good one too. Like, where can you actually
Yeah.
save time? Where are you spending the
Where
most
can
time,
you
and where can you save it? Like,
where can you delegate even?
robot vacuum.
Oh my God, that's
Honestly,
been a
the
game
best
changer.
thing.
Since my injury, game changer. Actually, this is a funny story, people. My injury meant that I turned around to Christos, who does no housework ever. In 14 years, that man he wouldn't even know how to start a washing machine. And he's never folded a piece of item of clothing in his life. He's never made a single bed. So his mother did it all for him until I came along. Now I'm mum. So I technically have 4 kids under 3 when you think about it. But I turned to Christos because obviously I couldn't do anything. I couldn't vacuum. And I am someone, I hate having anything under my feet. And I'm walking through the house and I think it had been about a week. And I normally vacuum like 2-3 times in the week. And I turned around to him and went, "You need to vacuum for me. I'm dying." It's like, it's legit. My OCD my head was going to explode. I said to him, "You need to vacuum." He vacuumed the house once. Turned around the next day, I had these 2 robo vacuums that had been ordered to the house. He's got one set up upstairs, one set up downstairs. Now he just runs them. Like, runs them every day. Then the whole
Best.
house is done because he doesn't want them. But they are game changers. So if you don't have one, they're like an air fryer. They are a staple that must be in your house. I believe
Yep.
they are a game changer.
I agree. Bit of
Yeah.
an investment, but like honestly, Justin and I looked at it and we're like, okay,
Oh,
how much time are we spending
correct.
vacuuming? What's our
Opportunity
time
cost.
worth? And then we divided that by the
Yep.
price of the vacuum,
Yep.
and we were like, that's going to
100%.
pay itself
I'm
off in
telling you,
weeks.
it is 100%. The opportunity cost of time is,
Yeah.
it makes it very feasible.
But even meal
So,
prep too, like air fryer,
yep,
rice cooker,
definitely.
things that can just save you
Time or bulk cooking strategies, you 100% want to adopt in. So I always say to all of my athletes, you absolutely have to have an air fryer
Yeah.
and ideally a rice cooker if you
Yeah.
can, and maybe a slow cooker because they're really great at throwing on in the morning, walk away, come home at night. We're going to have whole episodes where we talk about tips and advice and hacks and strategies. Stay tuned for those. But essentially, I guess the take home is you don't need more discipline, right? You just need better structure for any goal. So, and it's got to be relevant to where you're at. Meet yourself where you're at, right? It's what we do with all of our clients as well.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So I guess overall, when we're looking at this, we don't need, for a Gen Pop, we don't need athlete routines, right? So you won't see me doing Sarah level execution on things. And some days I'm going to landslide in sideways and the best I can do is the best I can do. But what you will see is repeatable levels of consistency in how I'm approaching things, how I'm adapting things. I will do simple things really, really well. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking just to basically tick all of my boxes. Whereas with Sarah, you let everyone know what yours looks differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like getting those non-negotiables, obviously, from my coach that I have to tick off. And then on top of it, doing all of those 1%ers and just optimizing everything, planning my time where I can. And I think planning ahead is a big one as well.
Yeah.
Because you have those non-negotiables as a competitor. So if my routine's not that flexible, but I am competing, it's like, okay, when can I fit in my training as like non-negotiable meetings? When am I going to fit in my steps? When am I going to fit in my posing? And just time blocking all of that around, work, if you've got kids, all of that, so that you can just fit everything in and make sure you're taking everything off.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that we focus on with Sarah too is managing energy so that we're really looking at signs and symptoms and biofeedback throughout as well, so that we're making adjustments sometimes where we need to structure or timing if it needs to adjust. It's not always about restriction and pulling from food or adding excess. If anything, actually, we've pulled things off of her on occasion. So, I think that's a really key thing to talk about too. So again, we're only capable of doing that because we have a structure, we have a routine, we have trackable, measurable data from those structures and routines that we can then rely on to make informed decisions. So I guess, for us, what we sort of wanted to showcase today was that structure really changes with various seasons. And the structure itself, though, while adaptable and flexible, is what creates and breeds success, right? No matter what success is for you for this point in time and what your goal or your objective is, in order to be successful, you can't half-ass it and wing it. There needs to be a level of quality routine / daily habits that fit you, and also provide a level of structure that you can have to focus on and lean back on the days where it is a landslide or motivation is, MIA, and discipline, is the most beautiful form of self-love that I think that there is. And it's showing a level of self-respect when you have the ability to choose the things that are serving you instead of the things that are not.
Yes, absolutely. And I think don't underestimate like what goals you can achieve by just having a simple structure and simple habits in place. If you think you've got this massive goal, like break that down into smaller goals and then break that down into the actual habits that you need to tick off every day, even if it's just 3 main habits. You'll be so shocked at how much you can achieve if you just stick to that for a decent period of time and have some patience as well.
And I'm sure she thinks that about all of her social clients too.
Yes.
Including me.
Yep.
Come on, Ali. Shit together, lady.
Consistency.
I will just say that social media is my one thing that goes when my landslides happen and my newborn takes the wheel. I just don't have time.
Just the priorities though.
My God, right? Like, yes, I'm too busy trying to just live life and hit the things that I need to hit as priority that kind of always takes a backdoor process for me. So look, I really hope that everyone tuned in today, enjoyed today's episode. And I think, look, for what we're going to be doing moving forward, we're going to have some really great structure. We'll have great special guests and we're going to have some topics, but we'll also have a level of interactivity where we're going to take on board some feedback from all of you and also any suggestions or requests that you might have. So what I'd love is that, you know, for anyone that you know that is stuck in the all or nothing mentality or the restrict and, you know, indulge, you know, cycle, maybe share this with them. Maybe, you know, share the podcast as a whole, because I think they're going to get some really great content, advice, tips, and actionable items from us as the months and the weeks go on. But I would really love it if you followed the podcast, showed us some love, gave us some feedback as you're going through our episodes, because this is the results method and this is literally the beginning of a brand new chapter for both myself and Sarah. And we're excited to be here with all of you.
Thanks for listening.